So in today's topic, it's something that I'm very passionate about, and it's a deer hunting, I call it a hoax, but you can call it whatever you want, scam, ripoff, whatever, doesn't really matter. But I made one of these videos probably every year for the past 3 or 4 years. And the video I made last year about it, it went nuts on social media. I think on the statistics on that video, or the analytics, I think it was shared like 439 times, I think it was. And that's a good amount of shares, especially, for my channel. But that's the October law, and we're a little bit of ways from that. And the October law could begin in September, or it could begin in October. But I think it came about, in October. They call it that because a lot of states' seasons start in October, and that's where it came about. And I always tell this story. When I was 18, 19 years old, I'm 37 now, I hunted with a few outfitters, and I remember going there at that time, and I remember all the guys in camp, saying, "Oh man, it's October," because we were in Ohio, and I think the season there, still starts in like October 1st or whatever. And all the guys would say, "Man, it's the October law. We're not going to see no deer. Why are we here? It's hot. We're just not going to see any deer." And I remember the outfitters would send you pictures over the summertime of trail camera pictures. What most outfitters do, they send you pictures, get you pumped up, and they would always send the pictures. And then when you get there, they're saying, "Ah, it's hot. The October law. It's just one of them things." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? Like, I've never heard of this before." And the guys would just tell you, "Hey man, I read in this magazine, in October the deer just don't move, and it's too hot, and they got their summer coat on, and they don't move. They just know when it's October." And I'm thinking this whole time, like, man, this is crazy, right? That's something real. Well, as years go on, you learn the truth about it, and you learn the motive behind why this is being pushed, and how this came about. And basically, the October law back then, however long they've been talking about it, it's basically, back in the day, was to sell magazines and moon guides, because these moon guides they used to sell, and they still sell them, I believe, but they would sell them, and you could spin the dial on it, and it would show you like, hey, hunt, a travel path from bedding to feeding, or and then you spin it again or something. It would say hunt the food source, or hunt the bedding, or hunt a travel corridor between the two. And it would correlate it with the moon and the time of the day, and the October, and it had the October law in there. And then all these magazines started publishing things about the October law. It's a real thing, and this and this and this and this. But I'm going to give you what happens in October or September according to whenever your bow season starts. And the video I made last year, it was very popular. I think if you YouTube search it, October law or whatever, it pops up at #1. But we're just going to run through this real quick. And what happens is that time of year is, whether it's September, October, whatever state you're in, it's going to vary. But what happens is agricultural crops are being cut. So in the summertime, spring and summer, when crops are planted, if you're in an ag area, bucks, does, whatever, have a food bed pattern. They bed, and then most times they get up and they move, and they feed to their afternoon food source, which is most likely an ag field. Well, in September, early September, late September, these ag fields are being cut. So the deer change their patterns. So now, if the ag, say it was soybeans, and that field is now cut, so now the deer have to reach out and search for more food. They have to find what food is available that's palatable and attractive to them at that time of year. It may happen in October, it may happen in September. So when you have your trail cameras out and you're getting pictures of deer walking by your camera from bedding to feeding to that ag field, and all of a sudden your pictures go to 0, it's the October law. But it's not. It's not the October law. It's because the deer changed their patterns, and now you have to go find them. So at that time, as well as ag fields are being cut, you have acorns that are dropping. The oaks are loaded. Most times they're dropping right around early September, late September, and deer basically will abandon all food sources to eat acorns. Yeah, acorns is roughage just like woody browse, so they're also going to need greens, that time of year as well, because greens are high in moisture content, so it'll help them digest. They may drink some water at that time of year because the natural vegetation is kind of going away. But the food sources are changing at that time of year. It's just like anything else. You have to realize that, and you have to find where they're feeding. It could be a food plot. If you have private land where the deer are feeding, in your food plot in the afternoons, well, they could be eating acorns someplace off your land, and by the time they get to your food sources, it's dark, and all of a sudden it's the October law, because that's what people post on social media, and it gets people fired up, because they're not seeing deer like they used to during the spring and summer. It has nothing to do with it being October. It has nothing to do with it being an October law, a September law. It has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with food at that time of year, from ag fields being cut to acorns dropping, and the deer are changing their pattern. You have to realize that in the summer, deer have their summer coat on, so they're cooler compared to what they are in October. So if you do get a hot day, say in October, and they have their summer coat, yeah, they're not going to move as much, right? But deer feed 4 or 5 times a day, and they consume 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pounds of food per day. They have to feed. So they may be getting up, bedding 150 yards, 200 yards, whatever, from a oak tree that's dropping acorns, and they can hear this. I remember back in the day watching the old Roger Ragland VHS tapes that he talked about this many times. Is deer can hear those acorns dropping, and when they hear them, they know where it's at, and they're going to go feed on them. And it always stuck with me, and it's true. They hear these things, and they know where the oaks are dropping. So they may be bedding 150 yards from this oak tree, and they're just getting up, hitting the oaks, and then going to bed back down because it's hot. But it doesn't mean it's a law. It just means that the activity is changing because of the food and things like that. So hopefully you understand that part of it. It's just about figuring it out, what happens at that time of year in your neck of the woods, and how to go about adapting to that situation. The next thing that happens is pressure. What happens when September, October hits is bow season starts in majority of the states. So when we're walking, you have all these deer, unpressured land, you're not going in there, you stay out a month before season, you have all these deer patterned on camera, and all of a sudden you start bow hunting it, and you're blowing your scent everywhere, and you're walking through areas, you're pushing deer out, and all of a sudden the deer, you stop getting pictures, the deer are at nighttime, you're not getting pictures like you used to on the standard travel pattern. Well, it's because you're pressuring the land, and you're making the deer go elsewhere and then coming back to your land at nighttime. It happens all the time. Even myself, I learn each year, and I've had to adapt to different entry and exit routes on my own properties. And I did that again this year because you can't spook the deer. And, at that time of year, it'll be on social media. It's the October law. All my deer are nocturnal. No, they're just nocturnal on your property because food sources changed, or you're overpressuring your land and they're going someplace else. It's not because it's October. It's because, we're in their house. The deer live out there 24/7. They don't want us in there, right? We want them there, but they don't want us in there. So when they know we're there, they're going to change their patterns. They're going to go elsewhere. They're possibly going to come back to your land at night because they can pattern you. They're going to pattern you before they pattern us. So it's all about change at that time of year. Food sources and pressure. It just happens all the time. Do not buy into buying October law moon guides and all these articles saying you can't kill deer in October because it's the October law. You have to adapt to the situation. You have to realize that all this stuff naturally occurs with food changes, food sources, hunting pressure. My suggestion would be to, if you have oaks on your property, set up maybe a trail camera up in those oaks, figure out which ones are dropping, set a stand up within that area, and you could have good success with it. And remember, deer can hear those acorns dropping, so they know where they're dropping. I remember I hunted a property, I don't know, 4 years ago, and they were just dropping all over the place, and the deer, they just funneled in there like crazy, and they tore those acorns up. I mean, there was deer everywhere, and the other oaks weren't dropping. So when that tree stopped dropping, the deer shifted to the next oak tree that was dropping acorns. So you have to learn to adapt to that situation. You know, deer changing their patterns has nothing to do with it being the October law or any kind of law. You know, most times that if you want to call it the law, you know, on your property because you're having nighttime pictures or something, it's because of pressure. You know, we create that situation where the deer are pressured and they're just going to go off your property. So hopefully this helps you guys. Don't buy into it. There's all kinds of hope for you to still kill a deer in September and October, even if it's hot. I've killed a lot of bucks when it's hot. It has nothing to do with anything. It just means you have to adapt to the situation. Hopefully this helps. Give the video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you guys are new. Drop a comment again, and I'll see you guys on the next video.